Okay everybody, so it's time to talk about Spider-Man, specifically everything we know about the newest incarnation of Peter Parker, the webhead himself. Obviously this is everything we know about him after Captain America's Civil War. So first and foremost, the most obvious is that he will be starring in his own movie coming at us next year in Spider-Man Homecoming. Obviously, slight spoilers if you haven't seen the movie. So one of the most decisive things amongst fans and the forums, if you're looking at anybody trying to argue about the newest incarnation of Spider-Man, is those eyes, and the fact that they are actually mechanical. Now, in the movie, there is actually reasoning behind this. When we are inside the Parker residence, we actually see that Peter has his own suit, and he has these very loosely attached, like ghetto-looking, almost ski goggles on there. And when Tony makes fun of him and questions it, he says that ever since he got his powers, all his senses have been dialed up to 11, and he needs those to be able to focus. Because the amount of information coming at him is just too much, so he needs to focus while fighting crime. Now obviously this is a reference to his spider sense, and clearly he hasn't actually perfected how to use it or master it. Now, as we're talking about the suit aspects of it, let's talk about the web shooters. We know in this that he actually made the web shooters himself, and he also made the webbing. And in the scene that they're actually in the house, we actually get to see him use the webbing to web Tony Stark's hand to the door when he threatens to tell Aunt May about Peter being Spider-Man. It is a pretty nice little scene, and also Peter himself has not fully experienced exactly what the webbing can do. And we also know that he does carry a bunch of extra cartridges with him as they are on his utility belt. And speaking of Aunt May earlier, let's talk about that, because in this we actually get to see their apartment, which is located in Queens, New York. Both of them residing in a small little apartment in a building. This is actually one of my favorite changes that they did with it, because in the last iterations we see Aunt May living in this giant expensive house. This makes a whole lot more sense, because even this little apartment would still be expensive and would cost a lot of money. And speaking of having money to afford stuff, in this we see that Peter Parker is very poor. He cannot even afford a real computer. Instead, he has to salvage parts from broken ones to be able to build his own. And he has to scavenge even other parts to be able to even get a DVD player. And another thing we learned during the epic battle that takes place at the airport while Peter Parker is swinging around is the fact that he is a fan of old movies. Specifically, he mentions one moment where they are trying to take down Giant Man as a scene from The Empire Strikes Back. And I quote, he says, a really old movie. As to which point every single Avenger references their age and questions how young this person is. And since we're still talking about Peter Parker, let's talk about the moment we all know from the comics and the previous movies, the death of Uncle Ben. Now, obviously, Marvel has made it a point to skip over that because everybody knows how Spider-Man becomes Spider-Man and how Uncle Ben dies. But when he is talking to Tony Stark about why he decided to suit up and do the right thing and fight crime, he actually mentions that he believes he should be doing it, that it was his fault that his uncle died. Now, he never mentions his uncle, but that's what he's alluding to. Now, let's talk about exactly how Tony Stark knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And obviously, Tony Stark was able to do some detective work to figure this out, but we also learned that Spider-Man has been operating for about 6 months at the time of the Civil War event, and we also learned that he is a giant YouTube sensation. And during this time, we also learned that not many people actually know about him, as he is choosing what to do and when to do it very carefully to try to stay out of the spotlight, and some of the videos that are even online are potential quote-unquote hoaxes. So there it is, guys, what we know about the current status of the MCU Spider-Man. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts if I missed anything, and I'll see you guys next time.